Kenny, and today I'm going to show you a recipe for creamy spaghetti squash. This is a great recipe that I love to use as a side dish when I'm sort of craving something indulgent. This is perfect. And you can also use the roasting process that I'm going to show you, and you can use this in place of your regular spaghetti if you're just making spaghetti with meat sauce or any kind of pasta dish. You can use the flesh of the spaghetti squash in place of the pasta. So what I'm going to do, or what I've already done, is actually I've already cut this in half. You're just going to do one big cut in the middle of this from top to bottom, just like that. And then you're going to see that you've got this flesh in here and these seeds and veins and things. So I'm just going to take a big spoon and just sort of rake that out, sort of like a pumpkin. All right, we've got all those seeds out. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put some olive oil in here. I'm going to do about probably a tablespoon of olive oil total right onto the flesh of our squash. And then let's get some salt in here. We've got to season this before we cook it. So I'm doing about a half teaspoon of salt. And then some fresh ground pepper right in there. All right, perfect. Got all the seasoning in there. And what I'm going to do now is get this on a baking sheet. Now I'm going to actually put this flesh side up for the first 20 minutes. So you want to do it like this. And then for the next 20 to 25 minutes, I'm going to actually turn these over so the skin side is up. And I'm going to know when they're done because whenever I can take my knife and just sort of poke right into the skin and it goes through really easily and I can tell it's soft, then you know your spaghetti squash is done. So I'm going to go ahead and get it in the oven. So we just turned over the spaghetti squash. It's got about 20 more minutes left. And in the meantime, I have got a skillet here with about 2 teaspoons of extra virgin olive oil. And what I'm going to do is caramelize some onions to go with the spaghetti squash. So I'm just going to put my onions right in here. It's really easy to do. Sounds fancy, but it's so simple. And I've got my skillet, like I said, over medium heat. So you don't want it to get browned, but you want them just to start to really soften, and then eventually they will get really nice and golden and they'll be really sweet. So I'm going to let that go, and the only other thing I'm going to do is just add a pinch of salt to it. And I will just come back and stir it about every 5 minutes, and by the time the spaghetti squash is done, this will be done too. Okay, my squash has come out of the oven and you can see it just looks great. It's got that nice little caramelization and it's a bright yellow color. It's perfect. So what I'm going to do is just take my fork and start just sort of scraping this flesh out from the skin, and you'll see that this is why it's called spaghetti squash. You can see that it sort of turns into a spaghetti type texture like that. So I'm going to get all this scraped out, and then I'll go ahead and get it right into the skillet with my onions. So spaghetti is in here, and I'm just sort of mixing it up with the onions. It smells fantastic already. You could eat it just like this and it would be great. But I'm going to add a few more ingredients. And what those are going to be is 2 ounces of low-fat cream cheese. And that's sort of my secret ingredient when I'm making anything that I want to taste creamy. I like to use the low-fat cream cheese because it just takes a little bit and it'll really give you a creamy texture. And it's not as bad for you as adding a whole bunch of cream to this or something like that. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of chicken stock. Now this is unsalted chicken stock. And what this is going to do is sort of let that cream cheese melt. It's going to bring everything together and, like I said, just make it really nice and creamy. So I'm going to stir this until that cream cheese begins to melt. And then I got one little final ingredient we're going to add to this. As you can see, that cream cheese is melted. It looks nice and creamy. And this is sort of an optional thing. If you want to add Parmesan cheese or whatever kind of cheese that you like, you can do that. I like to add a little fresh Feta cheese. It just has that nice little bite. And I just think it goes really well with the sweetness of the spaghetti squash. Just give that a little stir. And I cannot wait any longer. I have got to go in and taste this. Of course, if you want to add a little more salt and pepper at this point after you taste it, feel free to do so. And I think that you can now enjoy spaghetti squash. You've seen how easy it is to make, and this is just a really, really great side dish. So enjoy.